Howdy folks, my name is Richie and welcome to the very first episode of Tyria Talk. This show is all about Guild Wars 2, and if you're not familiar with it, I encourage you to grab a soda and a Pop-Tart, and I'll give you a little bit of background information. Guild Wars 2 is a game, it's an MMO that's being developed by a company called ArenaNet. They're based out of Seattle, and their mission with this game is to put out the absolute best MMO on the market. Now, you could probably argue that any MMO developer is probably going to have that same exact mission statement, but ArenaNet is taking some bold steps to make that mission statement a reality. So let me give you some examples. They believe that the MMO genre is stale and has grown stagnant, and anyone who plays MMOs basically understands that there are certain conventions that you just have to deal with. For example, like every party has to have a tank, a healer, and some DPS. Things like, just how you grind the way from level 1 all the way to max level, and it's usually like a chore and a lot of work, and then when you finally hit max level, that's when the fun begins. Different things like that, that every MMO today basically comes out with the same formula. ArenaNet is trying to solve some of these issues. And today, in today's episode, I'd like to talk about one specific bold move that I believe they're making, and that is called dynamic events. And basically, in a nutshell, what this is a replacement for the quest system that the MMO genre has kind of adopted. Right now, this is how MMO questing works. You have your character who's walking around a town, and there's a bunch of NPCs just standing around waiting for someone to talk to them. And you walk up to an NPC, and they might have a symbol over their head, like an exclamation point or something else, and that gives you an indication that that person has a quest for you. So you walk up to the person, and boom! You're hit in the head with this huge wall of text that nobody reads, like 90% of the people don't read the text. And you scroll down, and you look at this little summary at the bottom, and the summary basically tells you what you have to do in a nutshell. And it will say something like, marauding centaurs are attacking the village, and everyone needs your help. And you need to slay 8 marauding centaurs and come back for your reward. And at the bottom of the screen, you'll see your reward is a flashy new set of pants. So, if you want those flashy new pants, you got to go find these centaurs. Okay, cool. So you accept the quest, and then what happens? You look around, and nothing's going on. There's no marauding centaurs, and basically you have to look at your mini-map. Oh, okay, you see a little colored area on it. Let me go over there. So you walk over there, and there's some centaurs, and they're not so marauding. They're usually just standing around waiting for someone to attack them. Every once in a while, you'll see them engaged in some sort of canned animation sequence with like a villager and a pitchfork who has no chance of ever beating them, and they just perpetually all day and all night just go, "Hah! Hah!" until you step in. So that's basically how it works. Now, what do? You jump in, you kill the centaurs one at a time, and when you have your quota of 8 filled and the quest is complete, even though there are dozens of other centaurs standing around, you leave them. And you go back to the NPC that you got the quest from, and you say, "Hey, I killed the 8 marauding centaurs," and they go, "Great, here's your pants." That's basically how it works now in most of the MMOs. And people accept that, and you can just go on to your next quest. Well, ArenaNet doesn't like that. They want it to be more dynamic. Hence the name Dynamic Events. So when I was at PAX East up in Boston in March, I actually attended the developer kind of chat meeting where they kind of divulged some of the things that were going on with Guild Wars 2. And they described how the dynamic events would work. And this is the example they gave, which is a direct parallel to what I just described. They said that in Guild Wars 2, this is how it would work. You would be standing around in the city, and you would basically think everything would be peaceful, and there'd be no NPC with a little exclamation point on your head. You'd just be there in town for whatever reason, selling your stuff or chatting with friends or whatever. And all of a sudden, boom! A whole bunch of centaurs, marauding, would jump through, crash through the gates, and start killing the villagers in the city. Oh my goodness! Look at that. It's actually happening right in front of me. So what do? You can choose to help the villagers and engage the centaurs, or you can say, no way, man, I'm not getting involved with this, and you can run out of the town. But either way, your consequences have, your actions. Your actions have consequences. So if you engage the centaurs, you start attacking them, and you don't just kill 8 of them. You either stop the invasion or you don't. And other people on the server can help out. And it kind of builds, a community that way. You're fighting alongside all these people, that are also in town, and you try to stop it together. Now, if you successfully repel the invasion, great. Everyone who participated in that dynamic event gets rewarded, and the rewards are directly proportional to how much help you contributed to the cause. But let's say you don't help, or you don't succeed. You actually get overrun by the centaurs. Then that has a direct impact on the game world. The centaurs would take over the town, and they might fortify it, and they might use that as an outpost to start attacking other nearby settlements. And slowly but surely, the centaurs have a foothold in this territory, and until a large player base kind of gets together and cooperates to eliminate them. So you can see how this kind of storytelling can really have an impact to the game world. In a lot of MMOs to date, you do these quests, but you don't really change the world around you in any meaningful way. Everything just resets so that the next player that comes along can experience what you just did. And it's a problem. And, like I said, Guild Wars is trying to stop it. So what do I think about this? I actually think if they can pull it off, this is going to be amazing. Now, they've already said that there's thousands of these dynamic events that you can stumble into, and they want you to kind of just explore. They did also say, however, that players that were already very familiar with current MMOs kind of got into the game a little bit and didn't know what to do. And the developers just want you to explore, and these dynamic events happen frequently enough that you will stumble upon things. It's not just this big vapid world where nothing's happening. But the MMO players were a little bit reluctant, they didn't have a goal. So there are actually these little breadcrumb, I don't know if they're quests, but they're like these little breadcrumbs that the NPCs they're talking to that kind of, pop up little arrows on the screen, kind of point you the way where something cool and dynamic might happen. But I thought that was interesting that we're so entrenched in this idea that you have to walk up to NPCs with exclamation points in your head that we've kind of lost some of our explorer type instincts. So I thought that was interesting. The other thing that could be kind of challenging is they did say it was going to scale, which was good. So if you have hundreds of people in an area, that the difficulty will scale up. And if conversely, if you only have a few people in the area, the difficulty of that invasion, for example, would not be as difficult. But what I kind of see as a potential issue down the line is what if there's an area that what happens when players get bored of certain dynamic events, or the player base has advanced to different lands and a new player is trying to get into the game, and constantly wherever they go there's these dynamic events, invasions, kidnappings, forest fires, who knows what it is, and you're always just kind of by yourself. So I think that this kind of dynamic event is going to be really great for when the game releases and you're with the the leveling curve and everyone's together, and it's really going to be just this awesome experience. I just wonder down the line if how it's going to keep up, or how it will work then, and what kind of countermeasures they have to make sure that it remains relevant and interesting. Overall, I think it's a bold move. I think it's a great move. I think the MMO industry definitely needs this. And just a little bit more on that, I think that the problem with a lot of MMOs that are coming out now is that they are clones and copies of one another, and they take bits and pieces from all the MMOs that are successful, and they kind of put it all into their game. And on the one hand, that's smart. You want to have, there's millions of MMO fans out there, and if you make a game that's completely foreign to them, that's going to be hard for them to pick it up. But at the same, so you kind of want them day one to be like, oh, this is familiar, I know what this is like, and then have a few differences to try to differentiate yourself. That's kind of what a lot of them are doing. For example, Rift. Rift feels and plays a lot like World of Warcraft. If you're a World of Warcraft player, you can play Rift within a couple minutes of just familiarizing yourself. But at the end of the day, the problem with that kind of approach is, well, first of all, you're not going to get anybody who's tried an MMO and hated it to suddenly like your MMO. I don't care if your graphics are better or you have 9,000 more classes. It's just not going to work. The second problem is, yeah, it might be familiar to the MMO fans, but you have to realize that some players have been playing their MMO for years and years, and MMO players tend to be pretty loyal. So it's kind of like, are you really going to convince them to change over to your game, which is very, very similar to the game that they've already played when they have years of their lives invested in the characters and the community there. So it's kind of a catch-22. I think this fresh approach might be the best of both worlds. You might get players who always dismiss MMOs because they've tried it and hated it to suddenly go, now this is interesting. And you also might get players who have played MMOs for years to suddenly go, you know what, this is even better. Let me try it. So we'll see if it works out. So join me next time. I'll talk a little bit more about Guild Wars 2 and what they're planning, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments field below, and click subscribe to my YouTube channel to be notified when future videos are released. You could also reach me on Twitter at Richie Procopio, and I hope you do so, and I'll check you later soon. Peace out.